Today we're diving into a story that isn't really about environmental reports. It's about the balance sheets of the world's biggest economies and banks. We're talking about a massive, looming risk in Asia that the financial world is only just starting to wake up to.
So take a look at this. It's a tale of two futures for one city. On the left, you've got Hong Kong's famous Victoria Harbor, just as it is today. But on the right, that's what it could look like during a major storm tide. And this isn't some scene from a disaster movie, okay? This is a calculated risk. It's based on the super typhoons that are getting stronger and more frequent. Back in 2018, Super Typhoon Mangkhut was a really near miss. If it had made a direct hit at high tide, well, it would have looked just like this.
And this right here is the critical point. The real threat isn't just about losing some land. It's about what's on that land. We are talking about the economic hearts of global trade, the ports, the airports, and the central business districts that, more often than not, are built in low-lying coastal areas.
So you have to ask, right? If the risk to these global economic hubs is so obvious, why isn't it being taken more seriously? Well, a big part of the problem is that the models a lot of governments and financial institutions rely on, they're based on these optimistic scenarios that just don't match the path we're actually on. We need a serious reality check.
To really get what's at stake, you have to understand this concept of locked-in sea level rise. Think of it like a giant freight train. Even if you slam on the brakes right this second, its momentum is just going to carry it for miles down the track. It's the same idea here. The warming we've already caused has locked in a certain amount of future sea level rise. It's not a question of if anymore. It's when and how much.
To put the sheer amount of energy our oceans are soaking up into perspective, scientists have this incredible analogy. They estimate it's the same as detonating 5 atomic bombs every single second, 24/7. All of that heat makes the water expand and melts the ice sheets, and that's the engine that's driving this locked-in sea level rise.
So all that energy, all that warming we've locked in, it leads to this number. Right now, on our current path, we are heading for a 4 degrees Celsius warmer world, and that trajectory locks in a staggering 8.9 meters of sea level rise over the long term. And let's be clear, that's almost 30 feet of water.
Okay, so what does nearly 30 feet of water look like in human terms? Well, in just 20 major cities across the Asia-Pacific, it means the homes of over 200 million people are sitting directly in the path of that rising water.
And this map? This shows you exactly what we're talking about from one of the most important economic zones on the planet. This is China's Greater Bay Area, home to the manufacturing and tech giants of Shenzhen and Guangzhou. In that 4-degree scenario, the economic engine of this whole region is, well, it's just gone. It's underwater.
Now this is where it gets really systemic. Take a look at that 4-degree column. 100% of major ports are affected. 92% of major airports. More than half of the central business districts. See, this isn't just a disruption. This is the decapitation of the logistics and trade infrastructure that powers not just Asia, but the entire global economy.
And that brings us to what is, frankly, the most shocking part of this whole story. This massive disconnect between the physical reality we just saw and the people who manage all the world's money.
So get this, since the Paris Agreement was signed, the global deal to prevent this, the top 9 Asian banks have poured over $630 billion into the fossil fuel industry. That's the very industry driving the warming that's creating this existential threat. The top 3 lenders alone, MUFG, Mizuho, and HSBC, they account for over $300 billion of that.
And here's the kicker, the incredible irony. Where do these banks actually make their money? Overwhelmingly, in the exact same climate-vulnerable regions in Asia. For HSBC, a massive 82% of its revenue comes from Asia. For Standard Chartered, it's 68%. They are literally financing the flood that threatens to wash away their own profits.
And it really doesn't get more direct than this. This map shows the major bank headquarters and branches in Hong Kong, and it overlays them with the projected flood zones from an extreme storm. The risk isn't just some abstract thing on their loan books, it is a physical threat to their own front doors.
So the bottom line is, this is not some distant, far-off problem for our grandkids anymore. As the ratings agency Moody's put it very clearly, the argument that these risks are beyond our lifetime is just no longer valid. They are now flat-out warning that sea level rise poses a direct credit threat to entire countries.
So the path forward is clear, and the economic prize is massive. But how are governments and financial hubs actually responding to the threat right now? Well, let's look at a tale of two of Asia's most important financial centers, which are taking radically different approaches.
I mean, this slide paints a picture that couldn't be more black and white. On one side, you've got Singapore. The prime minister there calls climate defense a life-and-death issue, and they're putting $100 billion behind it. They're planning for a 2-meter sea level rise. And then you have Hong Kong, which didn't even mention climate change in its 2019 policy address. And what's worse, its flood plans are based on just 0.26 meters of rise. That's the absolute low end of the best-case scenario, not the 4-degree path we're actually on.
But you know, this massive repricing of risk isn't just a story about danger. Whenever old models break, it also creates one of the biggest economic opportunities in a generation.
A recent report from Bain & Company makes it really clear. For Southeast Asia, the green transition, it isn't a cost to be managed. It is a strategic path to a more competitive and secure economic future. It's about getting ahead of the curve.
And the path forward is surprisingly clear. The report points to 3 huge opportunities: leveraging the region's incredible biodiversity in a sustainable way, modernizing power grids for renewables, and going all in on the electric vehicle ecosystem.
And the prize for getting this right? It's enormous. By focusing on just these solutions, Southeast Asia could unlock $120 billion in new economic value and create nearly 1 million jobs just by 2030. This isn't about sacrifice. It's about seizing a historic opportunity.
So, here we are at this pivotal moment. The physical risks of doing nothing are undeniable. They're terrifying. But the economic rewards for leading the transition are massive. For the economies and financial centers of Asia, the choice is getting clearer every single day. The only question left is, who's going to make the smart bet and who is going to be left underwater?